Hello, Miss Allison. I'm
Heather.
I'm burning my hands here. My son just walked in. We're recording this. I'm in a hotel room. He just walked in with a coffee. He's sitting over there. I'm like, this is real life. This is called
Mhm.
work-life integration.
It sure is. And
Yep.
I have to say, I've recorded in hotel rooms before, and you found like the perfect nook that actually looks good. I feel like most of the
Yeah.
time I can't get the bed out of the background.
Well, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to turn my table the other way, and you're gonna see the whole room, which is an absolute shit show right
Yeah.
now." And then my son's over here, and I'm like, he's 15. I'm like, "You gotta get out of bed. You gotta get up. You gotta start your day." So this is real life, and this
Mhm.
is what we do. We find little lighting, little nooks, so we perceive out into the world, look how beautiful my life is. And behind closed doors, it doesn't look like that. And so
Mm-mm.
part of the reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you today is about you're really an advocate for women business owners, but women in general creating well, you can tell everyone what you're up to, but part of the reason why we connected is I'm so passionate about helping women become well-resourced way before when we need it. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, culturally, that's just not how it works, right? You go, 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 do. And then usually a crisis occurs and you're looking around going, oh, this isn't sustainable. Why didn't anyone prepare me for this? So can you just like tell us a little bit about your story and what got you to where you are today and doing the work you're doing?
Yeah, totally. I think, I started my business like every other, I think, business owner does or often do, out of need. I was like, getting approached from folks being like, "My business doesn't operate the way I want," or "Why do I feel like everything's just falling through the cracks?" or "My business is constantly on fire." And so when I was young and hungry, I started an operations consultancy. And I remember being approached about some of this stuff, and I always thought of myself as like an entrepreneur. I never really actually identified as like a business owner. I was like, if these businesses go under because I'm fractional COOing it, then I don't have a business anymore and I got to go get a job, right? So, 3 years into my business, I was doing this. I was fractional COO for a lot of high growth companies, and my son came. And there's like this fabulous photo of us, and fabulous because it's like really captures. I had just given birth. We got moved into the room that we were going to spend the night in, and my hair is like an effing mess, like an absolute mess. And he's sleeping in my arms because I remember him like feeling the bump of the hospital bed, and he had fallen asleep in my arms. And so my husband snaps the first photo of me and my newborn son. And the next moment, the one, frankly, that was not captured on photo, was me taking my sleeping son and placing him in the clear bassinet next to the bed so that I could whip my phone out and tell my clients and the few team members I did have that I wasn't going to be available until Monday. And this was Thursday morning.
So you just were like casually, "Oh, by the way, I had a baby today. Like I'm going to
Yeah,
take a few
today.
days off."
And like, honestly, Heather, I'll be totally honest. At first, when I was doing it, you got the oxytocin situation going on. Like, I'm super type A. I've always like pride myself on being really organized and having really high output. And that moment, I kind of wore it as a badge of honor. I was like, look how great this could be. Look how flexible this could be. And in the back of my mind, though, reflecting back on the moment, I knew that I had just done the first worst thing, which was choose my business over my baby. And that kind of started the theme, that landslide into early motherhood, where I don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I don't know why I didn't think that it was just going to rock my life. I had been in a situation where most things I had tackled just out of sheer tenacity and will, I was able to be sort of successful at. And so motherhood to me felt in my bones like my first greatest failure in the very beginning. And it started like seeping into a lot of my identity. I was like, how can I advise these businesses? How can I lead these teams? How can I be on these podcasts or lead these workshops if I can't even get my whole family into the car in under 20 minutes? Like, how does that happen? And so I love that you brought in like your son grabbing his coffee and coming into the hotel room, because we're always juggling kind of back and forth between mom brain and business owner brain and friend brain and sister brain and daughter brain and all the things that are us, right? Like, they complete us as a full person. And yeah, I really, really struggled in the beginning of motherhood. And that's what led me to start Master Maternity Leave, which is my main jam. I help business owning moms plan their maternity leave and just really hold that time sacred, not only to bond with their baby, but also to just embrace the transformation that is motherhood and business owner. Because, you know, so much can be different. I am not the same person that I was when I had that child, that my first child. And so creating that space for women to just go through the transformation and the process is frankly something that I am most proud of having created in my almost decade in entrepreneurship.
It's wild to me how I don't like, especially like the type A individuals who are like, okay, I'm going to prepare for this moment, and then life will show you it's going to happen. And there's like this weird primal thing that you cannot control that will shift inside of you. And every time I've had a child, I'm like, oh, like I have 3 boys, and I first one most traumatizing, and then you're like, "Okay, I got second, whatever." But every time I'm like, "Okay, I got this." And then I don't have it, right? And
Hmm.
that primal fear of like, I am failing at this. Like, okay, I can fail while trying to run a marathon and not crossing the finish line or getting my race, but like if you feel like you're failing in motherhood, that that is like hard. That
Hmm.
is like complete shame.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a big spiritual path, spiritual awakening. So what could looking back, what would you have done differently? Hindsight is always 2020. And I want to know, like, sure, the logistics, like when people talk about business, a lot of women will be like, I listen to your podcast, but I'm not a business owner. And I'm like, I don't work
Mm.
with just business owners. I'm like, business is
Mm.
often, women end up in business, kind of like you were saying, because they wanted like flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And so looking back, we can talk about the systems and processes and what you had to do to like put that in place, but also who did you need to become? Like what did you need to unlearn as a woman, as a mother? Um and I know we were chatting about I know I'm rambling, but we were chatting about in the DMs we were talking about like you were okay like by the second or third, and you saw so many women struggling. And I also like to push against this cultural conversation that women have where they connect through suffering
Mm.
instead of like connecting through thrival and opportunity and growth. So I'll give you the mic. Let me know what you're taking away from that.
Oh, I honestly, Heather, resonate with this so much. I know we touched on this a little bit, but my experience in early motherhood. So when I realized, wave the white flag, Allie's floundering through early postpartum, everything I got from motherhood communities was negative. At least that was my perception at the time. It was always like filled with judgment, filled with, well, I'm doing this better maybe than you, or something like that. And it was this competition, this feeling of, my way is the best way, or breast is best, or formula is fine, or whatever that looked like. And I remember being immersed in this world and just feeling like there was so much information, but not a lot of support. And so when I was probably about 6 months postpartum with my son, Frank, there was this moment where I had just finished up cooking dinner and cleaning up from dinner. My husband was with my son. And I was like at that point where I needed to feed him. And then we were going to do like the whole bedtime thing, right? That like landslide into the nighttime routine when the kids are little. And so I was like at the finish line. I had like made the dinner, we ate the dinner, cleaned up the dinner, and I was like ready to just sit and like nurse my baby. And I was throwing the very last paper towel into the trash can, and I like lob it in, right? Because I'm just like, oh, this is fine. And I missed. And you'd have thought that like my whole world was just coming down and crashing around me. I like had this meltdown and like spiritually I was like hovering above my body, like witnessing myself have this meltdown and being like, this is fully not okay. Like, you are not okay. This is completely irrational. You missed the trash can. And in that moment, I was like, I need something to figure out how to regulate here because whatever is happening around me is just not helping doing it. So I think for me, the unlearning that I needed to do was tying my self-worth to how much I could produce in my business. Because I think a lot of us, when we first start our business, especially for my service providers, like I think a lot of women businesses are often service based because we want to support, we want to help, and all those types of things. And then there reaches a point where we feel like we're giving way too much of ourselves in sacrifice of like the things that we need. And so what I had to unlearn in like about 6 months postpartum was like the amount of money that I made in my business is not like tied to how much time I spend in my business. And I think that was like a really, really deep unlearning because I pride myself on being useful. Like I am oldest daughter, 4 brothers, like always the one who's smoothing things over. I'm always the one who's like organizing the Christmas gift giving things. And so I take on a lot and it just always leaves me kind of hollow. And in that moment of like sheer panic and freak out for missing the dang trash can, like I sometimes I look back on that moment and like for a little while it was hard for me to like actually admit that that little thing had set me off like so entirely, but I'm honestly grateful that it did because it was so frankly ridiculous that it like pushed that light bulb moment up into my brain and I was like, you can't do this anymore. Like, because when I had that moment in the hospital, I was just kind of in that headspace of early motherhood's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to feel burnt out. You're supposed to feel stretched really thin. You're supposed to feel like you don't have a lot of support. And this is just a season. It's just a tough season. And so I was always like saying those things to myself, like in the shower when I was like on the verge of crying. And I remember saying to my husband at the time, I was just like, dude, I feel like I can't keep going this way. But the thing I think that was also really important that I had to unlearn. So, time isn't exactly tied to how much money I can make and earn in the business. The other thing is like, it's okay to not know what you need. So, like, I was a first time mom. I had no idea how the heck I was doing it. And I said to him, I was like, I need help. I don't know what that is though. Like, I just don't know. And so I think for any women listening, business owner or not business owner, if you need help with something, but you can't quite put your finger on it, it's still okay to like raise your hand and just be like, I need help. I need to meet the people. I need to get the support. I just need someone to tell me that I'm doing okay or like that they love me.
Yeah.
And that can be all that it is for right now.
Yeah, and just saying, "This is the challenge I'm experiencing." It's so weird how we think. Like, I hear from women a lot, "I know what I need to do, I'm just not doing it." And I'm
Mm,
like, "Okay, but do you see the disconnect?" Like,
hmm.
if you knew what you needed to do, like, do you know? Or it's underneath, it's this story of, I am the one. I am the one who needs to know and do everything.
Yeah.
And that secret story is literally killing women. Like, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, they're like, you're so aggressive sometimes with you're you're killing yourself. And I'm like, but guys, you don't realize that. Like, you're on the verge mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And like when the feedback culturally, even when you seek out support, like I went to the doctors, I went to therapy, and
Mm.
they said to me, suck it up, buttercup. This is motherhood. And I thought, well, that's traumatizing. Like, that is scary as fuck, and I can't live like this. Like, I
Mhm.
knew there was that part of myself, like, I can't live like this, like, looking at my husband and going, change needs to occur because I see and feel a train wreck coming, and him being like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to help you. Like, and I'm like, Heather, get your fucking shit together. You need to seek help. And I'm like, you're blindfolded, like in the freaking forest, and you're like,
Mhm.
just try. So now let's have the conversation about women who own a business. I know you and I briefly talked about sole income earner, breadwinner, and that whole conversation too. A
Mm.
lot of the women that I end up working with or that like come into my world are primary breadwinners or like the front facing income earners.
Mhm.
Um, the quote unquote financial leaders. And so not even the
Mhm.
cultural conversation of what that does like gender wise, but the sustainability that is required in order for you to set yourself up for success. So let's go into that combo.
Yeah, I think something that beautifully ties it in from what you said before is that we feel like we have to know everything and do everything. And I think that becomes amplified as you earn more in your family. So, like, as you become the sole breadwinner, and that was very true for me, right? Like, I felt like I needed to know everything and I felt like I needed to do everything. And I kind of isolated myself in that moment of becoming the breadwinner and becoming the one who was kind of the financial support for our family. And I think it's really a challenging conversation, generally speaking, because even if, like, my husband is super supportive of me being the breadwinner, like, the gender thing doesn't super matter. He calls himself a trophy husband, which I just think is so funny. And he does so much for our home. It's just not that he earns a salary someplace. And I think when we're in a position in our family where that becomes true for us, where we become the sole breadwinner, I always like to ask myself the question, and honestly, I do this all the time because my business is always changing, that, am I earning out of desire or am I earning out of desperation? And the reason I think that this is important is because I think if you're doing something out of desire and financial security or abundance comes from that, then you are less tied to well, I have to do this, or I need to do this, or I need to know this thing, or I need to do this thing. You just want to know, right? Like, there comes this thirst for understanding that doesn't feel so desperate or tied to a need that you have inside of your business. And I know that a lot of women, whether you're a business owner or whether you are currently employed or whatever the situation looks like for you, a lot of women create things because they think that it's going to just bring financial stability or financial abundance into the business, but it's not necessarily something that they really, really enjoy doing. Like, it's not their life's work. It's not the thing that they jump out of bed to do every single morning. And there is a time, right, and a place for the hustle, the grit, the stuff, like starting up life. But then there comes the time where that switches. And so, especially in operations over the years, I mean, men and women, I've seen a lot of founders start their business, lay everything down on the line, do the hustle and grind culture for an amount of time, and then they need to unlearn that thing in order to get to the next level. And it's so common and standard in pretty much every single client I've ever supported with their operational stuff. They just can't get out of their own way and stop doing, 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 doing. And I think from the financial conversation, I mean, I said this to Steve literally last night. We were sitting on the couch, like, debriefing a little bit about things that feel for us right now and things that don't feel for us right now, because we're always having that conversation. Like, what should we say yes to? What should we say no to? And legitimately had a client come in to operations agency, so my operations consultancy, in around January. And it was a big opportunity. It was a big business. It was a big, high ticket type of support system and structure. And I pitched it and I got it. And I usually would have been, like, pretty excited about that. Like, last year, I would have been like, yeah, this is amazing. This is a great opportunity. And for some reason, like, my gut was like, I don't know if you should have pitched that project. And It turned out the project went totally great. Like we delivered, it was great. We knocked out of the park for this person. Personality wise, it started to get a little contentious at the end. And so I reflected to Steve. So this was last month that the kind of everything kind of reared to a head. And like I'm talking crazy stuff, like accusation on personality. Like it was just like mean, like downright mean. And so I said to Steve, I was like, I should have listened to my gut. And I should have said no to that revenue. And I should not have pitched that project. And I think when we start to think about being the breadwinner, we almost feel this obligation like, I need to earn more by pretty much any means necessary. I need to bring in more. That's my value. That's my worth to my family. But had I said no to that project a little bit earlier, honestly, like my business, even in the last 5 months, we're in May, technically at the time of this recording, like of 2025, like my business has been amazing in the maternity leave space. So imagine what I could have done with like all of that renewed energy and all of that additional calendar space and all the things that I dedicated to that project. So I think the toughest part about being the breadwinner is being like, I can say no to this revenue or I can say no to this raise, right? If it means that it's going to take all of this stuff from me. So, like, really actually weighing the emotional, like, ante of doing that, right?
Yeah, I talk about energy leaks a lot, and it sounds like and it's one of those learning opportunities where you're like, what is this aligned? Is it not aligned?
Hmm.
Where's the edge? Where do I push? Where do I pull back? And I'm sure, like yourself, but a lot of people are like, damn it, I knew it. And it's like, okay, but what was the
Yes.
lesson here? And what's really interesting too about just that in general is if I asked you, like, yes, I understand people will come to you when there's like alignment and all of that. But if I asked you, would you have taken that person on 10 years ago? You probably would have said yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're now internally, like, once you're like, you gain momentum in the sense of like, what's working, what's not working, how do I want to feel, how don't I want to feel, is this sustainable, is it not sustainable? You internally raise the standard for how you let people treat you. You
Yeah.
internally raise the standard for the work you will do and will not do. And those little tiny micro decisions and choices are absolute game changers to sustainability. And that has nothing to do with if you have children or not. That is a
Hmm.
personal choice.
Yeah.
And it's all of these little tiny things. Like, it's not our kids that are stopping us. It is not motherhood that is sucking time and energy from us. It is everything surrounding it. And that's the conversation where I'm like, ladies, let's stop burdening our children with our inability to emotionally regulate. I think that is like absolute key, or emotionally or energetically regulate, and holding a higher standard for ourselves.
Yeah. I have a really incredible coach who always says, like, give your family the best of you, not what's left of you. And so I
Mm,
think what we often do, I love that like little like bite-sized saying because whenever I think about like tough seasons and I'm bringing what's left of me to my children, it's easy in that moment because you're at your weakest, you've broken down to just project right onto your kiddos because they're immediately what's tough in front of you versus doing that kind of reverse back into your brain saying, well, what did I do this week? Or what decisions have I made 3 months ago that made my professional life or my personal life? Have I not been pouring into my health? Like that's a big thing too, right? We feel like we're the last person to get a slice of bread at the end of the day. And in my opinion, it's a lot to do with us not putting ourselves first, like literally months ago, right? Like long time before these moments happen. So we have to look back. I mean, that project I just spoke about, 4 months was how long it took to sour. And so in the beginning, I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I did make the right decision. So it's like also natural to kind of flounder, like in the beginning, right? And then you finally see, you're like, oh, wow, this really isn't for me. It really did take a lot more of me than I was willing to give. And yeah, I mean, I learned a ton from that situation.
yeah, I'm also learning how people have coped with the last 5 years,
Mm,
and how when you don't do this inner work, Like I reflect a lot. I always have, we have those like seasonal moments. It's like 2020 or an election or economy or whatever it is. I think about shit. If I didn't do this, start this inner journey over 10 years ago, yeah, I would be coping with this season very differently. And I hear that from a lot of my clients too, where they're like, if I didn't start doing this work 2 years ago, like I would be on my ass. Like my colleagues are wondering, how are you doing this? How are you showing up? And they're like, I am just so grateful I started this a while ago. Um, but again, we all need a little throat punch once in a while to get our attention, a little gut punch, a little reminder from life like, "Oh yeah, I let that slide." Yeah.
Yeah. And we're always improving. Like I think that's something too I find that women struggle with quite a bit is their and I'm like totally in this boat is that like we almost can't be a work in progress in a lot of circles or in a lot of places. And I was talking to I have a business therapist. She's amazing. And I talk to her all the time about some of the big decisions about business and life and all the things. And she was reflecting back to me about some of the boundaries I need to hold in my life and some of the things I was telling her that I really wanted to make sure stood firm to just protect my energy and protect my role first, right, as mom and all those things. And she was like, "Al, there's grief in holding boundaries." And when I was 10 years ago, when I was doing, all the things, and like you mentioned, I took on this, client and I would be super excited about it and all the things. That's not now. And I didn't ever know that I was going to need to hold that boundary. I didn't ever know that I was going to need to hold boundaries with family members or friends and tell them, hey, listen, I can't make this birthday party. Like, it's just not for me right now. And there's grief in that. Like, you're always changing and shifting and moving in another direction. And so, like, experiencing the full cycle of, like, yes, holding this boundary means I get to have space to do amazing projects and let's celebrate that, and it also means that I have this like piece of my life or this piece of my business or this piece of my former identity that's kind of falling away. And I don't know if we often stop in those moments and really kind of give that the full cycle that it needs, because I believe that when I do that and I say, oh man, I didn't realize that I had to hold this boundary around my time, or I didn't realize I needed to hold this boundary around communication, then I just move to the next thing. And then when that thing comes up again, I didn't give it like its proper day. And so it still has this like emotional tie to me. Like that stuff still comes up, right? And I still get upset that I have to hold the boundary, or I still get, sad that that part of my life is over. And it's just hard. I want to just reflect that to anybody, I guess, going through this either live right now, like as you're changing and growing and things are shifting, like A, it's okay to not know or kind of just be a work in progress. And B, like there's a lot of grieving that takes place when you shift from, doing all the things or being all things to all people to moving into a position where there's a deep knowing around what is for you, at least in this season, and what is not. And it can scare some people. Like, let me just
Yeah.
say, you start to tell people what your boundaries are, and they'll be like, who does she think she is? At least the ones who've never done it before. And so just be prepared for some of that stuff too.
It's like a journey. Like you can tell when
Mm.
people I always can tell when someone's on the path, on the journey versus when they're like not and they're circling around it. I've actually found I have to the my grief cycle is like every 6 months. Like when you
Mm.
are an ambitious doer in the sense of like you take courageous action, like me, I'm like, what's my vision, what's my desire? Okay, lean in, lean in, lean in. And I'm in the state of momentum of understanding the game of that and like how to manage my energy and my time and all of that, just because I've been doing it for a long time. But every 6 months I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to reinvent myself again. And then you're like, the identity is shifting. I'm like, why am I grieving again? What am I letting go of? It's like
Hmm.
you're not running. I'm not running. I'm just like, wow, how good can life get? How much energy can I
Hmm.
have? Like, what's the impact I can make? And the grief is like you're letting go of stories you've told yourself that are cozy and comfortable
Mhm.
people who are you're like, "Oh yeah, I can feel that distance coming." Systems, processes, like I actually really team members, right? Like you go to a
Yeah.
next level and you're like, I just released two people from my team, and because I internally raised my stand, and I'm not like ruthless with like, you're gone. It was, I was hanging on because I could tell I was I fell in love with their potential.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, I don't do this in my romantic life. I need to not do this in my professional life. And I could just tell like you can hang on and hold people through a really tough season of their life, but you can tell when people are trying versus when people are just stuck in victim or
Yeah.
stuck in, like they're just in the in between. And one of the individuals that I released, I was like, you've outgrown this position. You're hanging on to it because it's comfortable for you. And now it's disruptive towards this business relationship. So
Mm.
I'm going to kick you out of the nest like I would my teenager who needs to like explore the world, because I know that's really uncomfortable for you. So you can be mad at me. I'll act like the mom, but I know that in hindsight, you will look back and be like, thank you. Thank you. And that's really
Mm.
hard as a leader. So, yeah, I always thought it got easier as time went on, just like parenting. And I'm like, no, it requires you to lead differently. It requires you to become a different version of yourself, which requires more internal, emotional, I like to call it emotional grit, like emotional, like, yeah, you're not going to be liked. People aren't going to like your boundaries. And that's okay. You will be misunderstood.
Yeah. I think it's true with our team and it's also true in our personal life, right? Like we have a
Yeah.
friend who we hold through a tough situation or we're trying to help them out of something and we care about their success more than they care about it for themselves. And sometimes that becomes really burdensome.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, yes, the joys of life. And then usually it's like, the quote unquote strong, responsible ones, usually the first child. I'm an only child. You're like, well, who the fuck does that for me?
That's right.
Who holds
That's
me
right.
when I'm going through that hard time? And so we're
Hmm.
so used to doing that for other people that, sometimes it's okay to say, like, I get very triggered. I'm also a former social worker with the saying of like, check on your friends. And I was like, I fucking check
Mm.
on everybody. And it's the opposite for me. I was like, I need to check on people less
Yeah.
because I check on people too much.
Yeah. I find myself sometimes doing that where I'll like reach out, check, hold the space, do the things. And then it's funny, a couple of years ago, I was told by a cousin of mine, excellent, like friend cousin, like we grew up like super close together. And he was like, Al, you are so good at checking in on people. Like, do you have like a reminder in your calendar? And I was like, no, I don't actually. I was like, and I was reflecting on that because he knows my line of work and all the things. He's like, surely she's got a reminder in her calendar. And I was like, no, I don't. And I just started looking at when I started to check in with
Mm.
people, like just my natural rhythm. And it was like in my luteal phase of
I
my
was going to say,
cycle. And I
yeah,
was
wherever
like,
you're in cycle.
huh. So I was like, this is really interesting. So then I started thinking about some of the things that I say to people when I check in with them. Hey, trying to see how you're doing, thinking of you this morning, wondering if you did that thing that we talked about last time or whatever. And then I just started thinking, I was like, well, what if I just like did that for myself instead? Like, what if in my luteal phase, I was like, I'm going to write down all the things that I was going to say to check in with friends and family. And I'm
And
just
do
going
it
to
for
journal about
yourself.
like where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it has changed the fucking game. Like,
Hmm.
changed it. And I'm like, why can't I just like be my best friend? Like, why can't that happen?
100%. Um, Remind people what luteal phase is for those who are like, I'm not a cycle sinker.
It's the week after you ovulate for most women. So usually like week 3 of your cycle. So just before your period comes.
PMS
And
week.
PMS week, yeah. And like that's always my toughest week,
Yeah,
which is so
me too.
interesting that like over years I like externalized that to like going and caring for somebody else, but what like I really needed was that space to like be
Yeah.
checked in with, which is so interesting. I'm also super new to cycle syncing with my calendar. And can I say, like, early stage, I've done it this year, like really heavily. And I love it. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Yes, this morning, as an example, I went to the gym, the hotel gym, and to get me there, I have a trainer like at home. And so when I'm gone, I'll do it virtually. Anyways, I was getting like PRs this morning, and he's
Mm,
like, "Why are you?" He's like, "You're killing it." And I was like, "Yeah, it's my cycle." And
because
I
you're
don't go,
ovulating.
yeah, I'm like, I'm ovulating. And he's like this young bro, and he's like, okay. I'm like, this is a real thing. I'm like,
It's
yes.
real.
Yeah. I'm like, this is real. So when you feel good, I also like when I open my eyes in the morning, I say thank you.
Mm,
And I will I don't know when I started that, but I know when I started doing it, I was like very anxious and going through a really, really hard time. So I will talk to God, universe, but then I thank my body and I
mm.
will say, thank you. And I'll just do a little check in. And if I'm like, feeling it that day, I'm like, it's okay. You're okay. You're okay. Like really trying to treat myself like, another child, like mothering, nurturing myself.
Yes.
But when you can get to that point where you're like, oh, I'm projecting this externally. Okay, got to turn it back on myself. I'm going to just
Mhm.
giving back to yourself first and then asking others, like, okay, yes, I'll check in with you. So when I have my
Yeah.
therapist friends or colleagues or clients be like, how are you doing? I'll go back and go, how are you doing? Because you're asking me, what are you going through? And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, yes. I'm like,
It's
I
true,
think
and,
that's you.
until you have that mirror, like, held up to you, it's almost, like, impossible to see because I personally, like, super type A, oldest sister type of vibe. And so like I've always been in that caregiving is my worth like type of situation. And honestly, it wasn't until I became a mom where I was like, okay, wait, this is like the ultimate caregiver role and
Yeah.
I love that you said treat yourself like another child because literally so big Colorado wind blew through yesterday. You can probably hear I sound a little bit like I'm underwater, so like lots
Mm,
of pollen in the air. And I woke up this morning and I was like, "Oh, I don't really feel like my nasal passages were all funky." And what I've been trying to do when I either don't feel well or something like that is happening, I'm like, what if Frank woke up and told me he felt like this? What would I do?
yeah.
And that has like changed the game for me because typically I would wake up and feel like crap and then be like, well, gotta put on my big girl pants and just, do the things that I committed to today, which I still did. However, in the morning, just approaching it with like that softness of like mothering me, I like made myself some tea and did a face mask and I took a long hot shower. And
Yeah.
it just like made the difference in my energy. Like I just felt loved in the morning this morning. And I don't know. And in years past, I likely would have not done that. I would have been like, I need to get my workout in, but like, I can just work out later if I'm feeling better.
Yeah, or yeah, it's a wild ride out there. But these are the moments like I just want to reflect back. The conversation we've been having today, like people will externally be like, "Well, what's the strategy? What's the process? What's the tips?
Mm,
What's the tricks?" And I'm like, the tip is how you treat yourself when nobody's looking. Like those little tiny micro actions and decisions that you make that are invisible that nobody would know. Like, how do
mhm.
you want to feel in the moment? It's not saying forget your to-do list and do nothing. It's saying how do you approach that to-do list? Do you decide to delegate some of it? Do you actually look at your list and go 90% of this is fucking busy work
Yeah.
because I'm avoiding doing this one thing. And so
Mhm.
that's the discernment that you as an individual have to make and choose for yourself. Um, so Alyson, like wrapping up this whole conversation, going back to maternity leave, and someone's listening to this and she's like, "Okay, where can I get more of this? Like, where do I begin? I'm considering having children, or I'm already pregnant, or I want another one, or I I'm not having any more kids and or I'm not having children, but give me more of that. I want space. I want to create a life where I can create that freedom if I want and desire. What do you got for?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, most often what I do in master maternity leave and even in my one-on-one work with female business owners is I just help them create businesses that support their life. And I do that through creating really firm operational structure and not like EOS red tape where it takes 70 team members to uphold this whole thing. I am firmly against these really large and cumbersome operating systems. I think an important thing that we talked about today that frankly all of my clients hate to hear in the beginning, but then they love it by the end is like the way your business operates really depends on like how you operate. And so, especially when we're so tied to our business and where it's leader and we're leading our team and all those things, is like if you can help yourself operate better,
Mhm.
operate in a way that feels aligned with who you are and where you want to go. And I think it's true for maternity leave, it's true for a summer off, it's true for a sabbatical, it's true for a whole holiday season off from the business. Just being able to like untie your self-worth from how much you are producing inside of your business to be able to enjoy those moments in life that frankly like maternity leave you often don't get back or you don't get that second chance to like really bond with your baby. So all of my best maternity leave planning stuff for business owning moms is at mastermaternityleave.com. We have an amazing training. So if you go to mastermaternityleave.com/workshop, all of the things I did wrong in my first leave that I changed to do in my second leave and like 3x my business, like y'all, it was wild. It's like absolutely wild. And I felt like I couldn't celebrate it with a lot of people, but then I like started celebrating it with myself and I was like, "Yeah, girl, you've got something here." And that's how Master Maternity Leave was born. Like instead of feeling like we need to suffer through the season, we can actually thrive through the season in our business and just like leave all of the of course challenges that are going to come along with welcoming a new baby into the world for like your fullest self to
Mhm.
actually tackle and deal with. And then AlysonCaffrey.com is my personal website. If you are listening to this and you're like, hey, I'm totally out of baby season, but like a month off in July sounds pretty great. You can always, connect with me. I do lots of work around my book is called The Sabbatical Method around like integrating rest into seasons of business and actually strategically taking time off so that the business can operate better when you come back. I'm a huge fan of like taking a vacation and allowing the business to become better in your absence because it's just a incredible opportunity, honestly.
Yeah, and then your team appreciates it if you have a team and they're like, "Thank God she's gone." And it actually it shows you where the gaps are as well,
Yeah,
like what's sustainable, what's not sustainable. Um, I think I'm coming off of like a what I would call a maintenance season, and I'm about to head into another quote unquote build. I think there's another book coming, and
fun.
but I can see the maintenance of like you're yeah, you're just like you're becoming a different version of yourself to be able to go
Hmm.
back out, and it's also very intriguing to me how they say how you do one thing's how you do everything, but, like, when you work on other areas of your life, like, building a business like, I'm out of childbearing season of my life. But building a business and like that rest and then push, rest, push, rest,
Hmm.
push is so aligned with uh building muscle or so aligned with
Yes.
like child development phases. And it's just
Hmm.
wild to me once you see the patterns in other areas of
Yeah.
your life. But you again have to be invested in doing this work in other areas. It's not just like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, it's just you gotta fucking realize that you are part of your business. And if you don't work
Hmm.
on you, it's not a business issue. It's a you issue. And if you see
Totally.
challenges like, hey, there's a challenge. I don't know how to solve it. There's somebody who I think can help me solve the problem and invest in that. If you're just listening to this podcast and you do nothing else, nothing changes. And we are
Hmm.
just You're addicted to personal development. So I'm always, people will tell me, they're like, I stopped listening to your podcast because you kicked my ass. And then when I was ready for it, I came back. So go follow Alyson,
Yeah.
ALYSONCAFFREY.com, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Alyson, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. This was amazing. Honestly, I had a blast.
And I'm just, yeah, I'm grateful for pulling back the curtains and having real conversations about how we can become more well resourced and get emotionally uncomfortable in any season of our life. So thank you.